can you just address this narrow point? Because this is important.
Yes, it is important. And that is why it's important not to narrow it down. But
it is important to look at specific instances rather than sloganize, isn't it?
No, it is not a question of sloganizing. What I'm saying is, how often does that actually happen? And were there no other means?
But if it happens at all, isn't it worth it?
But wasn't that a failure of intelligence rather than the need to use torture?
You can't say just because they didn't know it was a failure of intelligence. Here they got some information and they acted on it.
They failed to gain intelligence through other means. And why did they fail to do so? Why did they fail to do so?
Because intelligence... No, because intelligence is never 100% successful.
No, and how many people...
That's not a substitute for having the person who was responsible tell you exactly where the weapons factory is.
No, but how many people are tortured around the world with nothing coming out of it? And how safe is our world today, given that thousands, hundreds and thousands of people are being tortured, perhaps at this very moment?
Just answer, isn't saving lives more important than inflicting pain?
Saving lives is important, but there is no guarantee.
There is
no guarantee. There is absolutely no guarantee.
Irene Khan, isn't it more important to save lives than inflict pain? It's a very simple question.
No, I don't think it is always so. Because...
Is it sometimes so?
No.
No, it's never more important.
No, like
it's never more important to save lives than inflict pain.
Because like Freshta,
life is full of pain. You know that.
I know, but inflicting pain deliberately on another human being in order to produce a particular result.
And you'd rather have people die than that?
No, what I'm saying is that
it comes down to a dirty choice. You can't choose always the issues that you'd like to debate.
No, what I'm
it's
saying
a dirty world, violent world, difficult decisions out there.
Yes, there are difficult decisions to make, and the most difficult decision is standing up for your values.
Irene Khan, thank you very much indeed. Right, we're going to throw it open to you, the audience, and can we have your questions, please? Sadadin Ibrahim, let me just remind you of the motion. This House believes that torture is only acceptable under legal supervision. Your question, please.
Thank you, Mr. Sebastian. Here, Mr. Stewart and Mr. Qureshi. None of you has ever been obviously tortured. Am I correct in this assumption? Because I do not think that you could have made that argument if you were subjected to torture. And I'm speaking now both as a victim of torture and as a social scientist. I assure you both that it never works. And if it worked in one case, it has not worked in 999 cases. And I'm basing that on evidence that we have accumulated over the years. Has torture ever really worked? And it was very interesting that you all, both of you, it might, it may, it might, it may. You were never absolutely sure about any of your statements. You're just hoping that it may work, it may save life. And I assure both of you, and I assure our audience, that again, as a victim of torture, and as a colleague of hundreds of people who are tortured, I assure you, it never works.
Let me get them to react to that, may I?
Yes, go ahead.
Unless you have a particular question. Cover Qureshi.
The fundamental point that I made is that torture is abhorrent. And what I urge you to look at is what is actually happening, namely that torture is taking place all over the world. As Irene pointed out, hundreds of thousands of people are being tortured. But what we're focusing on is the use of coercive interrogation techniques to extract information. That is going to happen no matter what we say. We can condemn those states till we're blue in the face. Amnesty can condemn them quite rightly for engaging in this behavior. They will continue. Our proposition is that rather than allowing them to do this in a legal black hole in Guantanamo Bay or subcontracting to oppressive regimes, understand that this will happen, whatever we think about it, and try and provide legal protections for individuals who don't have any otherwise.
Do you want to come back on that?
Yes. My experience as a sociologist, as a victim, as a political prisoner, is that the community that practice and exert this kind of practice slip into dehumanizing techniques as they practice what they think is torture for a good cause. And then torture becomes pursued for its own sake until both the torturer and the tortured are totally dehumanized. That is the damage that is done not only to the victim of torture, but to the victimizer as well.
All right.
And therefore, I would urge our audience to vote against the motion.
Thank you very much. Lady in the second row.
My question is to Mr. Qureshi. You are proposing regulations for torture. On what basis you want these regulations to be established? And if they were to be established, how you will ensure that in every single case these regulations will be implemented? How can we know that it's efficient?
We can never be certain about anything. What we can be certain about, though, is that as an act of hypocrisy, many states are using coercive interrogation techniques in a very careful way, some may say, in a very callous way, thinking very carefully about how they can avoid legal sanction, subcontracting to states which are oppressive, or using legal black holes such as Guantanamo Bay.
But sir, you say you're not certain. How can you not be certain? You may be risking the lives of innocent people, and those